Whew, that was a day. It's really late and I've not long been home from work. I'm determined. So I've snuck down here for a few minutes before bedtime. I want to talk to you about the fourth wall. Now, in television or in the theatre, we very often see ourselves as looking in at a scene, a bit like this one here, where there's an imaginary wall here that we can see through, but no interaction happens between us and them. In model railway language, that gets even more exciting because from here to there is a complete change in size and scale too. So how do I pet the dog? How do I board the train? Those kind of questions. I'm asking some weird stuff, aren't I? You might have noticed that I tend to work in sections. I don't try to do the whole layout all at once. And so very obviously that part of the layout and that part of the layout have been done at different times. And we've never really sorted out the join between the two. I do notice a little crack in the background there. This was actually first. It's the tunnel mouth. Now then, do you see I've separated the train? That is something I learned to do around here, where I live. You see, where I live, trains aren't just 4 carriages long or 4 wagons long. We'll sometimes sit at a level crossing and count well over 100. The trains are often a couple of miles long and don't go nearly as fast as they do in Europe. Also here, most of the railway is single track, and so to pass, there's usually a siding, and the train will sit in the siding and wait for several trains to go the other way. And it's not uncommon for them to break the train where there are footpaths or crossings, because the train might sit there for a couple of hours and of course you then can't get across. So in my layout here, there is, from the work hut back there, an attempt at a dirt path that comes across the tracks. Now, the conductor rail, we always break those in Britain, don't we? And that's why I chose that section there to run that little piece of test track with the 3rd and 4th rail, because there's a natural break at the footpath. Now, it's not common to have a dirt footpath across a busy branch line, especially on the underground. But to the 4th wall, oh look, it comes off the edge of the baseboard. That's the only bit of anything on the front of the board. Anywhere else, 4th wall maintained, to the point where I would even have put a fence along the front here, probably done a bit of scenic work there. I haven't done it now because I'm always leaning on it, but eventually would. I suppose something like this, where this is scenic, has been stuck on the edge of the baseboard. Can you tell I didn't clean up from the last video we made? But standing here, I'm not going to do anything tonight. I really can't. It's so late. I had a thought. Now, this has always been a problematic area. It's sort of fiddle yard or stroke storage yard. I probably could have got one more track in if I hadn't put platforms there. But my original thought was, well, I've got to have storage sidings. Why don't I make them into a station? The big problem with this station, though, now I've got it all gone, even when we finish it off, how do you get to it? How do you get to that station? There is a barrow crossing, but it doesn't go from this platform to that. It goes off the front of the board again. Oh, fun. Now up there is the shelf layout. The shelf layout is going to go away. It actually lives in another room in the basement. We have a full basement, which means it's big. And so there's another room which I'm slowly taking over. Shush, don't tell anybody. I was just in there tonight and realized I've got a 10 by 9 or 8 by 9 at very least space I could build a layout in. And I may just do that and take you along for the ride. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Where was I? Oh, yes, I was talking about the fourth wall and this shelf layout. Once it's out of there, you end up with the high level unscenic or non-scenic part of the layout, which we could use that as a viaduct. Cover up here. Let me grab a piece of my paper, which is right beside me. There you go, something like that. So retaining wall right beside the station. I wonder if there's room. There might be room there for that. Not this paper. I just happen to have that handy. But you still can't get at the station. So what if we put a wall there or a fence there, remembering this is gone, and we have here the station approach, which is a turnaround, a dead end into the station coming from our side of the fourth wall. Let me just grab a box lid and see if I can show you what I'm talking about. Almost big enough. So it's a box lid. Now let's say that box lid were up at the level of the high level tracks with a fence along the back. And our station, let me see if I can, where am I going to find a station? Oh, I know, 1 second, I'll be right back. Do you see the list I made? Made me remember that this needed gluing. That's the low level station, but what if it were the high level station? Now I would have to remove the platform or do something with that. And now we need stairs to go down to this platform. But let's just move that way a little bit. There's plenty of room here. Now, if you just saw what I just did, I'd lose my British passport. I put the bus there instinctively and thought, oh yeah, that I just need to make it big enough to turn around. You numpty, it goes that way and turns around this way, of course. So either, if you want to see the front of the bus, move the station the other side. Yeah, you see what I'm on. All of that to say that this isn't the size, but you get the idea. Now, if that came out to the edge, we would have, you know what, I'm going to get the canopies down. I'm getting a little excited. Well, there you go. That's something of what, I'm not going to put it back right now. There's a tooth missing. That's the one we found the other day. Do you remember finding that? Must glue that back on before I forget where it is. Putting the canopy in this place, I've now got a gentleman running straight into it. But you get the idea. This fits between the two. And we've got a road coming out off the board. Let me think of one other solution here. Now, I'm sure it wouldn't be rocket science to figure out how to get the end of that off and join those two together, making a long station canopy and then end feed the station. Now, we're not at the right height. The bus is now facing the way I like to see it. We're right at the end of the platform. Makes some sense. There's a bit of a yard at this end. This is where our engine shed is, and the signal box and all of that good stuff. It's left over from yesterday, remember? I haven't cleaned up yet. I did not say this was the building we were going to use, but could. Remove the front, and run stairs down to the platforms, which are relatively wide. I'm going to measure those, see how wide they are. All right, it'll be in inches because it was American wood. And 3 inches, 75 millimeters, what's that, 17 and a half, something like that. 17 and a half feet, under 20 feet, over 15 feet. So stairs for, let's say, 8 feet. So we've got about 5 feet either side. That works. So a staircase going down onto each platform. Now, if we were all the way at the end, you could stairs almost the full width, couldn't you? I'll have a think, but I'm leaning in this direction. This is an old building. My friend John made that. Now, John was into buses. He wasn't into these buses. He was Southdown buses was his thing, and he had dozens of them, and he built a fantastic bus depot. Where's that unglued bit? Of course, I've turned it around, so it's over there. I'll leave that out. I'm cluttering this board up really fast. But I think what I'm going to do then is to have a high-level station with a dead end. So the station approach be a bit wider than that, coming down to a fenced track at the end that are nothing to do with the station. I think we can make that work. So that's what I'm going to have a think about. I shall take a couple of pictures of this and take it with me to work. And during lunchtime tomorrow, I will have a little think. Now, don't you worry down there. You've still got a waiting room. You just need some stairs. I have plans. We've talked very briefly about this other station in the far corner. I'm not going to get into that tonight, but this whole end is due for a major refit too, isn't it? But let's get the big station done first. I like the idea of doing anything I can to bring the layout out to where I am instead of me being a casual observer. I like things people can touch. I really don't like the sign that says do not touch. I realize I'm not silly. I do realize the reasons why not, but at least having a button on the front, that's not a button, that's for the curtain that hangs on the front. A button that maybe makes the lights in the bus light up or something. I don't know, but anything you can do to bring people from one side of the wall to the other is, in my view, a good thing. So that's what I'm on. We'll see how it works. So this is where we're going to be playing. I'm going to give these a good clean up before I put them back on. And of course, I've got the front walls to go on too. I am going to put this rock face next to that. Look at that. That's ridiculous. Tiny bricks, big old rocks. Something wrong with this. This is, they claim HO's scale. A foot by 2 foot. They're not bricks, I've said that. They are faced rock. I'm going to use it and we'll see what happens. Do you see this? The corrugation. Hang on. The packaging it comes with. You see this? Ooh, I like that. I scratch built that building up there. I will show you that at some point, but all of the roofs were made out of the second layer of a chocolate box. So quite proud of that building. It's obviously very shallow. It's only about 1 inch deep, but from anywhere it looks much bigger. Not going to get into it either tonight, but that's for another day. But this is the first step of a maybe what if station. Now, I'm not going to start carving these canopies up until I'm sure, but you see where I'm going. So that's what I have in mind. Oh no, you're going to have a footbridge left over. Well, other than those platforms are too narrow to take it, it would go there. There's not a sensible way from one side of that either to the other. But you could walk around the end. But remember that station, long term, we're talking about making it a through station through there. So yeah, big plans. One thing at a time though, remember that. Even with this one thing at a time, I can't run trains sensibly. So in the next day or two, I'm off for 2 days after tomorrow. And I shall sleep for a whole one of them. And during the other one, I will get this cleared and we will run some trains and I will get that brick paper on and I'll have another think about all of this. Now down under the board at the end are all kinds of construction materials. There used to be a box of newspapers down there, but somebody's taken those. So we've got plenty of materials waiting for us to do our thing. That box lid was right down here under the board. It's amazing how long I haven't been in this room before we made this latest series of videos, and in that box was this. I have been looking for this everywhere. It's something that sits on my desk for the students to play with, and a whole bunch of little wind-up toys. There we go. I think this one will actually go along the track a little bit. There you go. No trains running. But are we being silly or what? The station then, just a few ideas. This will probably be a short video because of that. Couple more days and we'll be back into running trains and a little bit of construction. Excuse me for being so... It's just been long, but what fun. Till next time, thanks for watching.